Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Vision Long Island, the downtown. We have a panel here today that we are going to be talking about the changing retail landscape and the opportunities that are ahead of us. My name is Gina Coletti. I'm going to be moderating today, and I'd like to first introduce the panel. We have here today, we have Larry Rosenblum from Zykovich Architects, Dustin Downey from Southern Land Company, Russell Helbling from Sabre Realty, Francesca Carlo, Nassau County Council of Chambers, and Joe and Joe's from Fuller Engineering. Good morning, everybody. Okay, so we're a little tight up here, so I'm going to try to make this work as much as possible. But my first question, the way that we're going to do the format today is we're just going to have each panelist speak for a few minutes on their topics and what they feel they have to offer and what they see and what in their experiences in the changing landscape of retail. So we're going to start off with Larry. I have a question for you regarding the changing landscape. What do you see as the opportunities to offset the potential decrease in the brick and mortar demand? Is there something
So first, I think we should take a look at the first slide, which basically says this is the changing landscape of the retail world. We're looking at, in 2017, massive closings. We're talking about buildings that are by themselves an acre minimum, and the associated parking with that, another 2 to 3 acres. So basically, shopping centers throughout Long Island are seeing all of a sudden 5 to 7 acres of land becoming potentially available. And the question is, who's taking its place? And the opportunity right now is really to help define who's taking the place and what that can become. So when we look at it, in my mind, thank you. In my mind, what we have is,
when it comes to leveraging technology, and I think we've seen the benefits of that.
This one, sorry.
It's not necessarily a model that worked here.
That's the
one.
Few technical problems, sorry. So in my mind, what we have is the opportunity to take what were strip centers and turn them into placemaking areas and opportunities for new town centers, not to compete with downtowns, but the areas that do not have strong downtowns can start creating new opportunities that have mixtures of different use. What the challenge is on that, and this is really the opportunity, is for the towns, villages, etc., to start looking at zoning. And to really look at zoning and saying, okay, mixed-use development, is that permitted? Is 24/7 type activity what's going to revitalize these areas? And from my perspective, the only way in which developers are going to get excited over the opportunity of looking at this, as opposed to just replacing failed retail with another failed retail for the short term, is by having the participation of the local municipalities to step forward and say, you know what, we got to start looking at overlay zoning districts, easy ways of changing zoning that allow for mixed use, that allow for the introduction of residential, to create town centers that previously didn't exist, and take a strip center and turn it into a valuable piece of 24/7 activity. So I'm just going to show you this really quick. This was a very proactive developer, actually in South Carolina, that saw this coming in South Carolina and understood that their center was about to have 2 or 3 major vacancies. And instead of waiting for the inevitable to happen, what they did is they went to the town and they said, okay, let's reinvent this 2,000 car parking lot and the strip center and throw together a whole combination of uses. So they create public parks, they freed up an awful lot of real estate that was parking area and turned that into amenity space. They added a residential component, and they added recreation and placemaking. Part of that was also done by introducing entertainment, which traditionally can go on the second floor. So you've now freed up the ground area. Entertainment, restaurants, etc. can be traditionally on the second floor. Very much like Long Island, this is a low density area. But I thought it was a good model, and I thought it was an example of being proactive and speaking to the point of opportunities. I think the opportunity is if we create the right environment for this discussion, we can turn the negative retail world to a positive opportunity for our communities.
I think you saw a similar thing in Kansas City.
Thank you, Larry. It's a very good point you make. And I can give an example also in the town of Wisconsin, where I live, and I was the chamber president for many years. There was an old armory that was, it was just a mess for so many years. It was a blighted building. It was on 10 acres of property, and the town converted that to a library. It now has a water park for the children, a regular playground. It has tennis courts, walking paths for children, adults. They have a dog park. They have a roller rink. They have so many pieces of the puzzle, but they really utilize the space. So sometimes it's just thinking outside of the box and trying to create a space. And we also did a gazebo for all the concerts that come to the town every summer. So it really is the hub of Wisconsin, where they never had one before. So it's a real creation of space. It's not so much on the retail side, but it's still the creation of a space. Okay. Next we have Dustin. Dustin, from your experiences, you're a developer, correct? So if you could share with us what you have experienced on Long Island, off Long Island, and what you see is potential for us.
So, first I want to apologize for everybody who can see my bald spot in the mirror behind me. I'm getting older, getting a little fatter, and I just got married, so my wife reminds me of both every morning. But beyond that, my name is Dustin Downey. For those of you who don't know who Southern Land Company is, we're a ground-up mixed-use multifamily developer. We develop about $1 billion a year in ground-up multifamily across 7 markets. As far west as Las Vegas, Nevada, and as far east as Long Island, Suffolk County. We go as far south as South Carolina. So we have a wide array of experience in multiple different markets. We have 4 major offices, 280 employees. We have 37 architects, engineers, and land planners on staff. It is very important for us to be design forward, and it's very important for the communities that we go into to be very design forward. And what I mean by that is when we go across so many different municipalities, we've seen so many different communities and different constituents, we've been able to get things rezoned across the country, including me working here in Long Island, in both Suffolk and Nassau County, because we've worked with the community and done it and trying to move design forward. And that's to ultimately change the very typical block plan of 90-foot setbacks, 100-foot setbacks, all the parking in the front, big fields, big barrack-style apartment housing where you've got 60-foot setbacks on every side, and a 2-story building that literally looks like my old Army barracks. So going away from that, getting a community to embrace mixed-use development is difficult. I think it's getting easier here in Long Island. I think part of it is that they're seeing that so many of these retail centers are so blighted now. They've been vacant for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, particularly large grocery stores, functionally obsolescent space. There's not a whole lot of demand for 120-foot deep space. There's just not a user for that. So what we're trying to do, and what we've seen around the country be successful, is to take these 5 and 6, 7 acre sites that have a, say, 50 to 100,000 square foot, single floor, single use occupancy, take that down, bring in more functionally relevant retail on the ground floor, whether it's a 60-foot deep bay or 45-foot deep bay, anything from 2,200 square feet to, as large as maybe a 5,000 square foot tenant, and take that and turn it into a mixed-use environment by adding either office or residential on the top couple of floors. You need that density to make the numbers work. One thing that we haven't been able to make the numbers work around the country is putting back in place relatively the same density that we just took out. So you need the zoning, you need the town to be behind some higher density use to get some of this stuff cleaned up. I was actually looking this morning, out of our 14 active projects that we're building around the country, 11 of them were ex-retail sites. So whether it be a strip center or a large grocery store that we're taking down that has just become functionally obsolescent. In Dallas, which has kind of seen the forefront of the retail boom and the retail crash. Dallas, if anybody's familiar with Dallas, anything north of 635 is suburban strip center hell, is what I call it. It's one strip center after another for 50 miles. Literally 50 miles to the northernmost suburb. And it's become so over-retailed that most of the B and C class stuff just can't keep 50% occupied. It can't keep 25% occupied. So what developers have done is they've come in and taken that down. Now, Dallas has a little bit easier zoning program than certainly Long Island does, by a massive, massive hysterical amount. And they take those retail centers down. They reduce the traffic impact of them. Put back some. They're always required to put back some retail because they always want to maintain both the tax base, the sales tax base, and some of that activity. We're never allowed to just go in and put in pure apartments back where once a retail use was, nor do we want to, because what we could have turned into a walkable environment, which is relative, again, a relative statement. We really don't want to put apartments on the ground floor. It just doesn't fit. It doesn't feel right. You can't lease ground floor apartments. So you need a use on the ground floor, and that's where a functionally relevant ground floor retail works. 60-foot bays, 15, 20,000 square feet per project. But that's, it becomes a minor part of your NOI. The banks are more willing to fund it. You're not seen as a retail credit risk. You're seen as more of your primary use either being office or residential. We're here on, sorry, I'm bouncing around, but we're here on Long Island primarily to bring our experiences all around the country to Long Island. A lot of, like I did a lot of development in Raleigh, North Carolina, where NC State is. So if anybody's familiar with the International Building Code, that NC State was instrumental in writing a substantial amount of the International Building Code. They're now moving forward into a new zoning code, and they helped write the Fair Housing Act. They're really moving forward with it. They wrote a new zoning code 2 years ago that requires any retail shopping center that's to be taken down has to be taken down and put residential or office has to be put on top. You can't just put retail back in its own place because they just don't want it. They want and need these walkable, unique, 24/7 environments, which is so interesting that they're so excited for that and they want it so bad. And then we come up here and see that people really are very, very resistant to it. I believe once Long Islanders see like the success of the new village at Patchogue and other places, mixed-use environments similar to it, that Long Islanders will start to embrace this idea of mixed use.
Instead of just saying, hey, here's the all the information that you see when you're looking online,
Thank you so much, Dustin. Okay, now we have Russell from Sabre Real Estate. Russell, from a marketing trend perspective, what do you see as far as the industries? Have they shifted much as far as like what kind of industries are requiring certain kinds of space? Because I know I'm also in real estate and I see a lot of push from Brooklyn and Queens, everything pushing east. From a warehouse perspective, they're looking for industrial space, but what do you see as far as the retail and the industrial? What do you see on the horizon?
I don't mean to hog on this. So, the LEDs within this lighting controls.
It's weird, yeah. It's very cold. It's like putting it in my lap. So, I'm Russell Helbing from Sabre Real Estate Group.
Are you familiar with lighting controls? So if you look
Unfortunately, I don't think I can speak that well to industrial because it's not my forte. I'm really focused on the retail sector. I have been for the last 12 years. Obviously, retail is supported by the industrial industry with Amazon and everything else that's going on, and bricks to clicks. But I really wanted to focus a little bit on retail because I think up here I'm like the true retail guy that sees a lot of the trends that are happening from a brokerage perspective. So I wanted to talk a little bit higher level first and just talk about Long Island as a whole. I'm sure everyone in this room already knows this, but Long Island is a pretty great place. We've got 2.8 million people. We're the longest island in the continental United States, 118 miles long by 23 miles wide. We're broken down into 2 counties. Sorry, I'm not good on a microphone. 2 counties, Nassau and Suffolk County. 1.3 million people in Nassau County, 1.5 million people in Suffolk County. Nassau County is 1/3 the geographic size of Suffolk County, so it's extremely dense. Lots of wealth, lots of people. It's a great place for people to retail. Although we're seeing a lot of exiting of retailers on the island and nationally, retail still seems to flourish on Long Island. It's because we have such high densities and strong incomes. So the good retailers, the smart retailers are still doing business, are still growing, and are still have a major desire to be here on Long Island. But we need to change the way we look at things if we want to continue to grow. So traditional retail, the big box, junior box stuff, that's kind of drying up, except for, let's say, the TJX brands of the world, because they offer a different experience when you're in the stores. So in order for us to continue to develop and reposition projects like Dustin was talking about, we need to be smart about the way we do things. There's been a lot of new development on the island in the mixed-use sector, and I think we're really in our infancy, currently. And unfortunately, for me as a broker trying to fill the space, many of the developers have focused residential office first, retail second. So I know the retail isn't driving the development, to Dustin's point 3 minutes ago. It's a smaller component of the development, but ultimately, as a developer, as a town, as a consumer, you don't want to see the space vacant. You want to see it filled with great retailers that are going to offer not only an amenity to the development itself, but to the communities around the development. So in order for that to happen, we need developers to think about the retail as they put these buildings up. For example, although traditional retail isn't growing like wildfire anymore, restaurants are. Those 3,000 to 4,000 square foot QSR brands, fast casual brands, polished casual brands, the fitness uses, the healthcare uses, the walk-in dock-in-a-boxes. Those are the guys that are really growing. But when you look at the food side of things, those guys are gobbling up tons of space, and ultimately, clustering food users together have kind of become the new junior anchor of many of these new developments and even traditional developments, or backfilling larger space, because that's who's growing and that's what people want to see. And consumers are retailing more online, so you can't buy a hamburger online. I mean, you could have it ordered through Caviar, but it's a little different than going and having the experience of eating with your friends. What I've seen, and we've handled a lot of this mixed-use development on the retail side, is truly the developers have not planned for food. You need to come in and build Black Iron day one. I don't care if we don't have... All right, fine. You don't have to put the Black Iron in. You got to put the chases in so that we can do it, because doing it after the fact, is that much more expensive. And what you see as we take these projects to the market is that that's the use that it has a demand, and then we can't fulfill their demand because we just can't put them in. So we maybe plan for one food user, and you've got 30,000 feet, and you've got one food user at 3,500 square feet, but you've got 7 food users that want to come in. You have enough parking to do it, you have the desire to do it, they want to pay the rent, they're good, clean, excellent uses, but we can't put them in there, so it becomes a major problem. And then trying to do precipitators after the fact, or putting black iron in after the fact, is exponentially more expensive to do. And I think that if we are forward thinking in our development process, we'll have a much easier time of merchandising these retail spaces with the uses that work. And then when you bring good food users, then you get good fitness users. When you bring good fitness users, then you get good boutique users. So it kind of all works together because we're creating a synergy between like-minded tenants, which then will satisfy the consumers and or your tenants in the residential portion of the project. It kind of all goes hand in hand. There's a major synergy that happens there. So there was a lot of talk in there about zoning and site planning, and we were talking about zoning and site planning. And I think that ultimately going forward, if we want to be successful repositioning projects or product and developing mixed use, we really need to think through all components of the project, not just how the residential look going to look, how the balcony is going to look, how the bathrooms are going to look, but how is the retail going to work in concert with the product above the retail? Because if we don't, it just becomes that much more challenging to lease, and then we're going to get users that are less than desirable in the space, and then the developers come to us and say, why the hell can't we lease this? And it's like, well, we didn't plan for it, we don't have parking, we didn't plan for deliveries, we can't have a pharmacy because we can't get a 53-foot truck in the parking lot. Well, we should have thought about that first if we want a CVS in our development. So, my problem, no problems. Sign me up, we're ready to go. So that's it.
Thank you, Russell. Okay, now we have Francesca Carlo. Francesca is the president of the Nassau Council of Chambers, and she's also the owner of a retail store, a retail hardware store. So I would like to... What? Does anybody know that? So it's actually an interesting perspective to hear what you have to say from both sides, like what your chamber members are saying and what their concerns are for the retail and for the downtowns and in their neighborhoods. And from your personal experience as a retail store owner, how have you adapted and what have you done to change in this evolving world that we live in these days?
Thanks, Gina, and thanks everyone for being here. I look out and I see a pretty diverse crowd out here. Everybody knows the statistics, and thank you all for, clarifying some of the things. Retail is not dead. It's changed, for sure. But each one of you that are sitting out here, how many of you are Prime? Amazon Prime. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Okay, almost all of you, except for you two up in the front, but a lot of us. My husband is Retail Prime. We is Amazon Prime. We have owned and operated a family hardware store in Plainview Old Bethpage for 57 years. Yeah. It has never been easy. And brick and mortar stores right now are absolutely facing a tremendous dilemma. And it's a very a multi-faceted effect. Certainly Amazon, and pushing to get a warehouse in Long Island, I don't think is the answer. We do not want to have just people stacking conveyor belts, moving product and all of that. But we do have to start educating, and this is what the Nassau Council of Chambers of Commerce is trying to do, is to educate you on what you are doing to your communities. Because if you let your clicks overcome your visit to the bricks, you're not going to have any more brick and mortar. You may have restaurants, but in conjunction, what you're talking about, gentlemen, is that if you have a pizza pie and you start dividing that pizza pie into 8, and then you put in another pizza store, and then that pie gets smaller and smaller, so that one is going to close and one is going to open, and it's a revolving door for that. I've heard many times from many downtowns that they don't want any more restaurants. They need to have retail, but we've somehow demonized. We used to have entrepreneur, young people who wanted to open boutiques and all that. Well, it's a changing environment with Amazon. Please, and I'm challenging all of you to please be conscious of what you're doing. When you are, and I'm sure that many of you are involved with local charities, baseball, as you have young children, you have your baseball and your youth groups and your Girl Scouts and your churches, synagogues, all of these charity do-gooder organizations. Go to Amazon for your next raffle. It ain't gonna happen. You can't go to the Gap, which is suffering. You can't go to, Toys R Us, which are out and never would contribute anyways. But it's your local retailers who live in your community and go out to the restaurants and spend their money. And their employees spend their money. You have to keep the money here. Our sales tax dollars are dwindling. I don't care what you read in the newspaper, they are dwindling. Yes, Amazon collects sales tax, but there are thousands of online realtors, retailers who do not pay sales tax, do not collect it, and don't pay it. Okay, if we are not collecting in Nassau and Suffolk our portion of sales tax, let's go after, and it's a federal issue, because these online stores were given incentives back in the 80s to do startups. Well, guess what? It's payback now. I'd like to continue living on Long Island, but I want some payback from guys who got startup money. Let them start paying back. So, just basically to wrap up, please think about what you're doing when you click, and before you click and buy, give Shop Local a try.
Good point. Thank you. It's a very, very important point what you're saying about online, because a lot of people don't realize what's happening is we rely, Suffolk County, Nassau County, we rely on that tax revenue, and every time you buy something online, we're not getting that sales tax revenue, so the numbers are decreasing, and there's now a gap where they're forecasting and budgeting, and where do you think that money is going to come from? Our taxes are just going to go up, so it's a vicious cycle. So we're contributing to it, unfortunately. One of the things. Just, I don't know if you all know this, but when you buy online, let's say from Macy's, and you buy every set of jeans in different sizes or whatever it is, but then you go and you return it to the store. Macy's in Roosevelt Field is not getting the credit for the sale, okay? They're not getting the credit, but they are getting a hit for those returns. So no wonder the Macy's and the JCPenney's and all of them are going to close. That is the real problem. Think about it. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Francesca. Okay, now we have Joe Deal from Bowler Engineering to discuss your perspective from an engineering side, what you think going forward.
Well, I'm not going to bore you as an engineer with the nuts and bolts of what actually goes on, but the good part is, as a partner at Bowler Engineering, we have 24 offices up and down the East Coast, and probably about right now 50% of our business is still in the retail. If you went back 10 years ago, 2006, it was probably about 70% of our business. The company started from working with, whether it's the Walmarts, the A&Ps, the banks, and just growing, but doing it from a real magnitude standpoint of running their program. So we got a lot of insight of how the retailers think from the inside and going to their headquarters and understanding where they want to go, why they want to go there, what their ultimate plan is for whether it's the Northeast, the whole East Coast, so on and so forth. And we got to be partners with them. Really, it was a learning for us as our company grew over the last 35 years, to understand their perspective and what they were really going after, and then help them be a partner with that, and whether it's help find land and work with, you know, people like Sabre and Russell, and, you know, get the information out for what they're looking for. So it'll never be back, in my perspective, where it was with the massive aspect. When you look at like TD Bank, who was opening on the corner of Main and Main and paying whatever they were paying to do so, and getting the prime spot and opening the number of banks that they were at the same time. And McDonald's and the QSRs were going out of control at the beginning of, you know, from '95 through 2007, and that quantity that like really ran the industry for a long period of time. The thought process now is really, what's the quality of the spot that they're going for? So for all of us out here who are brokers and developers, you know, we're all fighting for the same tenants that are going out there, but it's not dead. I mean, the amount of work that we're still doing and seeing, which I'll go through in a few minutes, it's not dead. It's just the quantities are down. They're all doing stuff. At some portion, they're never going to go away and just become, for the most part, just on the internet. It's just the quantity of it is, which allows the opportunity for other things to come in, like what Dustin was saying with the mixed use and the places and so forth. And just to throw a plug out there also, Dustin and I had lunch on Monday, and you want to look at developing an actual place that you want to live, play, work, go on their website and see what they've done in other parts of the country. It is awesome. We don't see any of that truly here on Long Island. People talk about it, try different things, but going back to what Larry was saying earlier, zoning aspects, and before I get too deep into this, are any supervisors and mayors in here right now? Because I have applications throughout Long Island, and I don't want to put my foot in my mouth right now, but I do have a couple comments to say about this. You know, fighting the rigorous battle of getting things approved on a daily basis. You know, it would be great to bring some of the things like Southern does out to Long Island and do that. And to do that, everybody wants to speak about, you know, they want a lot of green areas, so that when you start bringing in green areas and cool other functions that people want, you're reducing the area of where they can actually make money as developers, which they need to do to make a deal work. So what can we do? Well, let's not just only go up 2 stories. Can we go up 4 or 5 stories on Long Island? Go around, try to find 4 or 5 stories on Long Island, 6 stories, 7 stories. What's wrong with it? Everybody says, oh, you're bringing Queens out to Long Island. Long Island's a dead end. I mean, there's only so much land that we have, and I understand that we want to keep the suburban aspects of it. We can be smart where we go and where we do it, but the areas that are already developed, let's maximize it. It's already developed, but it's dark, it's got blight and whatever it is. But to do that, I mean, we really need to work faster and act quicker on the approval portion, because nobody's going to stick around anymore and fight the battles for 3, 4, 5 years and spend that type of money anymore when they can go somewhere else. And a lot of the developers that we work with on Long Island, you speak to all of them, they're doing stuff in North Carolina, they're doing stuff down in the DC area, they're doing stuff down in Florida. That's what it is. Half their time is traveling and going doing the stuff there. We have to bring it back and really keep the dollars here. I'm getting off the retail a little bit, but I'm going to stay down this road. Infrastructure at the same point, right? What fixes our infrastructure? There's only so much we can get out of the tax dollars. It's when developers come in and they're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars. While they're doing that, they're fixing sewer lines, they're fixing utilities, they're doing sidewalks, they're doing roadways, they're putting in sewage treatment plants where we don't have sewers in Suffolk County. They're doing that stuff. If we hold them back from doing it, who's doing it? There's only so much that we can get out of the tax dollars. So allowing them to not spend 5 years battling to get an approval on something and take those dollars and reinvest it back into Long Island, which also helps in the retail, because we want to blend everything together, because that's where we're going now, and put it in strategic spots, because we've developed a lot of Long Island, and there's areas that need to now be, what we were talking about earlier, redeveloping. You know, the blighted areas, let's put the dollars in there. I'm not talking about taking 100 acres of virgin property down. We have more than enough of developed property that we can redevelop in. So, all right, I'm passionate about this, as you can tell. So I'm going to stop now. And one thing to Russell, as a designer, and Larry as a designer, we do think of things while we're designing, and we think about putting chases in and stuff, so. I know, pass it along, I know.
But the developer has an HOA away from their apartment.
See, that's the whole thing. It's a combination of efforts. It's not just one piece of the puzzle here. There's a lot of factors that go into this. So what I'd like to do now is to open it up to everybody in the audience to see if anybody has a question.
Hi, I'm Marion Russo, Director of Community Development for the Village of Patchogue. So I just want to ask Russell, what type of shopping retail? We have lots of restaurants, but now I can happily say we have about 6 new retailers that opened in Patchogue in the last year, shopping retail. And that's what we need. And so I just didn't know, you spoke about restaurants. Can you talk a little bit about what shopping retail is coming? Or that you've seen interest in? And also, just Francesca, we had 2 boutiques open in Patchogue in the last 6 months by young women.
Wonderful.
So,
Wonderful. Great.
Trio South Shore.
Okay. That's amazing, and that's rare. The soft goods retailers that I see coming in are the ones that provide an experience to the customer where they're either shopping a curated assortment of goods that they come into the store not knowing they want to buy anything, and then they're there and they're like, hey, I need that for my desk, and they never knew that they needed it. Or they're the retailers like the discounters like Nordstrom Rack, TJX, any of those Ross stores that you're going in, it's a treasure hunt. The Gaps of the world, things of that nature, they're not really growing. Is there still a place for them? Yes, absolutely. People want to be able to go into a store and touch the goods, but if you, as a retail guy who makes a living off of retail, I have 8 Amazon boxes come to my house every single day that my wife's ordering. Or the Gap, just speaking of the Gap, yesterday 3 boxes from the Gap came for clothes for my daughter. So, and she does what you guys were talking about. She buys it in 16 sizes and then she chooses one and then she returns it. So unfortunately, even though I put food on the table because of doing retail deals, doesn't matter. People are going to be drawn towards convenience and they're just going to do it regardless. But I still like a traditional retail experience. I want to go into a store, but unfortunately I'm guilty of it too. You go in, you check it out, you see you like it, they maybe don't have your size and then you order it. If retailers, I think retailers still need to offer that as a showroom space and kind of blend the experience with coming in, like Bonobos did with the Fit Shop, where you come in, you see what you like, you get fit for it, and then it comes to your house. The more retailers that do that, the more successful retail is going to be. But the just basic clothing stores of the world, there's not a lot of that happening anymore.
Real quick, just around the country, what we've seen is that in mixed-use environments where, again, I'm primarily underwriting the apartments, and this is just real world. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Most boutiques, most startups are all huge credit risks and become big issues for us. And we turnover on retail, especially on new product, it becomes a big problem. Not only for our management, but for the look and feel of the space. What I can tell you is that if I can build a dense enough other use, where the retail is no longer, again, my primary credit driver, I can take a flyer on a boutique. I can do certain things, because a lot of times we're under parking restrictions where I can't put 6 or 8 restaurants in a row. I'd have to build a 800 space parking deck to make that work. So I need inline retail, I need infill. In a lot of these areas, I'm in places like Patchogue that are a little further out, that don't have the density where I can go get a very highly curated, highly amenitized, very credit-worthy tenant like Lululemon or Charm Charlie's or anything like that. It's got to be something a little more mom and pop. And I can take mom and pop credit risk as long as I have something else to base the project on. I can take a lower rent for the retail, which keeps the local retailers in business. I don't need $50. I don't need $60. I can do it off of 20 or 18, triple net, whatever it is. In Texas, in Denver, and actually in Nashville, we have a Whole Foods anchored shopping center. The Whole Foods does $78 million a year, which is a massive amount of money for a 50,000 square foot grocery. And then we have literally 30 mom and pop retailers next to it, and then anchored with a Lululemon and a Charm Charms. And we're able to infill those spaces in the middle there because we have mixed-use product on top of it. Because I didn't need to underwrite every single rent that was in the inline retail. And you're just we're never going to go back to where Macy's is ever successful. Our company's taking down 3 Macy's across the country and turning them into office or turning them into apartments. Because Macy's, that's not a good user experience. None of us, I live next door to the largest store on earth on 34th Street, and there's no way I'm ever walking in there. I mean, you must be joking.
Actually, I want to just say, I want to say one thing, that you guys were all real lucky because Nassau was the first suburban community, and you learned, hopefully, you learned your lesson by oversaturating the market with so many strip malls. That's number one. So the rest of the North Carolinians and the Texans and the Austin and the Denver and all that, they look to us, and we kind of blew it, unfortunately, the first time around. So they're all reaping the benefits. Also, just to let you know, most retailers, including Trio Hardware, triohardware.com, we're not sticking our heads in the sand. We all have a online presence. But we do want you to come. We are paying the $40 per square foot. And if landlords and builders realize, you want to have some of that additional interesting information, stores, you have to work with us too. So you learned from Nassau and go forth.
Okay, we have another lot of questions. Go ahead. Let's do another question because we don't have a lot of time left.
Brandon Polanco, I actually am now in Dallas. I was raised here, the development up here. We can learn some things, I think, from elsewhere. So real quick, the one thing I think we're missing here is I haven't heard much on the outcome of economic development, and it wasn't until just now you mentioned office. So what is the role of office to provide daytime density and population, to obviously provide assistance for the retail and the like, and how does that work tying it into the engineering? On a large site, it's one thing. If it's a mall that you're doing a suburban retrofit, you sort of control the whole thing. When we're talking about a corridor, how do we work with what is in the right-of-way and literally change the design of our roads so they can promote, and it might not happen for 10 or 20 years, but promote the next cycle of development to be more walkable and to provide that economic development, Class A office opportunities where it's possible. So those are high-paying jobs. It can't just be residential or office. That's what's feeding us right now. But we got to look especially Long Island and grow that job.
Okay. There's a lot of there. So a good example is, look at Isla Pines, Sorota's piece out, that is going to have, it's going to have office, it's going to have industrial, has residential, has retail, and that's, it's 175 acres about, and they're going to tie into the sewer there. But you look at that, how much, you need size for that, and how many of those properties do we have on Long Island? I think that's one of the things I think we compartmentalize so much. Retail's here, offices on 110, but go drive on 110, where are you going to eat? Right? You're going to stop at Blackstone or where?
That's a corridor,
it's a corridor
where the infrastructure has to change.
Exactly. And they've been talking about it for how long? We probably have heard it a lot at these meetings here about on Huntington, all the stuff that we're doing, and we're going to have the speed bus, the rapid bus, and everything else, but it takes a long time. That's part of what I was saying. Just we talk about it for a long time, but to get it moving on Long Island, it's been very tough.
Okay, next question.
Hi, so I'm Joanna Weissman. I'm with PSCG Long Island. I'd like to actually announce a couple of new programs to get it moving on Long Island. We just put these out, press releases out recently. We've got a new incentive program for for downtown revitalization. We're looking for projects that are moving, that will have some tie-in to using electricity.
You're looking for a specific application.
And we're offering financial assistance. So that's one great new program. And then another great new program we have is a vacant space revitalization program, where if in a commercial area, this parcel has been vacant for a year or more, will reduce your electric bill for the first year of the business coming. 40% off the first quarter, 30% off the second quarter, 20% off the third quarter, and 10% off the fourth quarter. So all the information about the new programs are on our website under economic development. Please, we're looking to promote these. We're looking for people to participate. That's why they're out there. We're trying to grow Long Island.
Thank you.
I welcome you to come and
That's great. Thank you for contributing. Questions, Matt?
Hi, so I just want to direct this question to Francesca.
Hi, Alan.
Adam, but that's okay. As long as you answer my question, it's okay. I think you're phenomenal what you do. Your passion, it comes through clearly. We've spoken on several occasions. I do have an idea for you that I think would be unique because the demographics of Nassau, we're really just like a small square or rectangle the way we're very dense. And we're not going to be down there at overnight delivery, but using a courier service for Nassau County businesses only who are retail, having same-day delivery of all their products would work and help people shop locally and keep it local because people want things now. They don't want to wait a day.
We deliver.
No, I'm saying, I know that you, my point being, I understand that, is not just you, but having every company or mom and pop have that ability and having a company partner with you guys so they can, with powers of numbers, can get more people to participate in local businesses would help that.
That's a really good idea, and actually I spoke with Uber about that because they are partnering with restaurants. The problem is that so many retailers are just so busy running their business and trying to promote getting people in. It's a very good idea, and I will certainly, spread that around. And Gina out in Suffolk. Suffolk is so much bigger that they have a problem with that. But Nassau, man, I'm not saying just shop Plainview or Bethpage. Shop Long Island.
I agree, but my point being that the reason why Amazon's successful is people don't leave their homes; they get it the next day or 2 days. You could do 2-hour delivery with a good courier service for the same price you pay for delivery through Amazon, and it would keep it local, and people would then flock to you for the goods locally.
Next question. Thank you.
Thanks. Just a little bit more direct question for really Dustin and Russell. What kind of bottleneck how does that bottleneck directly affect your desire to build multi-family, complement Russell's desire to show your creativity and your firm's ability to get side of your kind of know, because this is like a major lack of sewer. The absence of it in Suffolk and the lack of it now.
So I'll tell you.
No much, you can't spend enough money. You can never affect the presence of sewer on Long Island. How much money you guys have, how hard you work, how hard you design.
So we were the winning bid on a school district site in Smithtown, which is just, you guys all know. At the end of the day, we made a lot of mistakes that hindsight being 2020, I could have certainly done a lot better. Worked with a PR program, marketing plans, etc. But I'll tell you, what it really came down to, one of the things that were the most hated thing, besides the fact that we were bringing multifamily in, was the fact that we had an STP. Not only did I have to require a $4 million discount from the school district who was selling the property, because I had to put a $4 million STP plan in. I also couldn't have a single restaurant on my site. So, we were oversized and trying to connect on a little bit of the Main Street down the way there on Smithtown, so that they could add restaurants back in. Because the Main Street of Smithtown, I wouldn't call it blighted, but it's struggling. It's depressed, and it needs to be. It needs to be revitalized. And the only way to revitalize that is to bring in restaurants, because that's what people want to go to, especially when you're that far north where you're not maybe in a core retail shopping environment. That's you need service retail, which is restaurants, fast casual, dry cleaners, everything that needs sewer is what's popular right now in retail, and we can't get sewer. So it just basically makes all of your retail space functionally obsolescent if you were to build it new, or if it's 100 years old. It's already obsolete because it doesn't have sewer.
It's not just restaurant. Just to expand on that, it's also if you want to put the Dock in the Box in there, their heavy water use, any fitness user, whether it's SoulCycle or a regular gym or Orange Theory Fitness, they have showers, so now they have more wastewater management. So if we don't have sewers, then it limits us. In Suffolk County, you can buy Pine Barren credits, but then that costs a lot of money, and now the rent has to go up, and then the tenant can't pay the rent, and now they walk away. So so either we're going to add sewers, or the price has to go down for Pine Barren credits, or it's not going to happen.
Thank you, Russell. And to that point, I live in Smithtown, so I completely hear what you're saying, and I agree. I would like to see that project go up, and I know there is a tremendous need. The sewage treatment plant, the STP, is a sewage treatment plant, if anybody didn't know what that was. Just want to make sure that the acronyms flying around all the time. It's key, and there are so many, I can't even tell you how many real estate deals that I have dealt with in Smithtown that they were amazing ideas, but in theory they're great, but you can't get it off the ground because of infrastructure. So the good thing is at least we got 40 million from the governor, 20 is going to Kings Park, 20 will go to Smithtown, but it's like it's a drop in the bucket, right? So
what can everybody do?
Here is from the earliest stages of planning.
It's a major concern. It's really the infrastructure, and then it's zoning on top of it. It's like the infrastructure and the zoning. Everybody has to speak up. Really, everybody has to speak up. I, as the co-chair of the Suffolk Alliance of Chambers, last year I had a meeting where I requested, because I did a survey to our members, and I asked everybody what are their biggest concerns. And number one is infrastructure, downtown revitalization, money, access to money. So infrastructure, nothing can change unless that changes first. So, but let me just finish my thought. I had the commissioner of the health department come to address the chambers because everybody's complaining about that. All these businesses want to start up. They take forever and a day to get anything off the ground. And half of them, they're wasting so much time and so much money, they're bleeding money. So I had them address it. At least it helped to try to streamline the process for them so that they at least have a point of contact and they can try to get things done. But I mean, it's a process. Nothing is going to happen overnight. It's not, because it's so convoluted. But do you want to add anything to this? Okay.
I'll just say one thing. I mean, so back in the 70s when Southwest Sewer District was going on the South Shore, they had a big plan, and everybody read all the stories of what happened. It ended up stopping and never got out there. The problem is we continued to develop, and now we're overdeveloped. So putting in a municipal sewer like Nassau has in Suffolk is not going to happen because you'd be tearing everything apart that we've already built. It's going to be, like we were saying, one in Smithtown, one in Kings Park, what they're thinking about doing in the Oakdale, Sayville area, and look like that. But how do we do it? We help support projects like the Smithtown project, whose part of it was going to be looking to put in a plan to support that. You oversize it so you can start attaching everybody else into it, but once again, getting the approvals for the developers who are going to help pay for this is what's going to get it. By preventing the developers to develop and help with the infrastructure, we're going to keep having this problem over and over, but it's not going to be about one large sewer system for all of Suffolk. It's going to be put them in concentrated areas and maybe in the future start connecting to more of the residential areas, but it's going to be, got to put them in the concentrated areas.
This thing's been around for about 10 years.
One more question.
What you can do with this
is
a lot different than
question?
The demand is so substantial that while it's walking around on something that we're trying to rely on, you know that it's there as technology. The reality is that infrastructure necessary to continue the movement for today and should be next generation services is so much more substantial. So I think it's an important conversation that started today.
They have a
And there's two communities, part of our mission. So my membership or anything that you need around the wireless event place that has
startups in them, kind of like Launchpad on Long Island, which has moved into the downtown area, but never in a big facility like that. So throwing that out there.
No, that's great that you say that, because that's one thing that we want also is to get feedback from everybody here. Is if you have a concept or an idea of something that you think that we could bring forward, because we do elevate these. If there are ideas out there, we like to obviously bring them together, and we do go to Albany together. And
I'm going to just intersect. I'm so sorry. But one thing is, just to answer this fellow right here, just everybody that's in this room, really honestly, we're all very smart people, and we should be able to figure this thing out. But if we band together, the realtors, the builders, alone we are strong, but together we're so much stronger. So if we, like Gina and I mean, we've partnered together now. We have a coalition in Nassau County of 10,000 businesses. Gina has a much larger area, but truly if we all really went at it together and said, hey, we are a dense voting population, take heed.
Okay, so 2 seconds. I want to respond to the comment that was made on Industry City. AFIRM does probably about 1 million square foot of retail a year, and a lot of it is in the city. If you want to see some really good examples of creative ways of approaching retail and what is going on that really should be adapted into Long Island, go onto the New York City EDC website. New York City, the project you're referring to was sponsored through New York City Economic Development Corporation. The model that they use is basically zoning has to respond to the needs of the community. It's not the other way around. So what you have to do is they basically put task forces together to analyze, well, what's the trend, what's the opportunity, and how do we reinforce that to make it happen. And I think the model that has to change in Long Island is that zoning has to become responsive to the reality of what's happening in the world, not the other way around. And I think until that's changed, until the types of thinking that has been applied to areas outside of Long Island, whether it be in South Carolina, whether it be in Texas, whether it be in New York City, when that happens, you'll find the ability to create the sewer districts. You'll find the ability to get that public-private partnership going. It's all doable. I do 30, 40 projects a year that all are based on that model. Come to Long Island, you bang your head against the wall for 5 years, and maybe you get something done. So it's time to change that dynamic, and I think that's the main point.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Larry. All right, so to wrap this all up, I mean, I want to first of all thank everybody for being here today. The fact that you're in this room means that you're looking forward to the future, and obviously you're interested in seeing what can be done. My suggestion, and I know you asked, like, what can you do? What can everybody do? Speak up. Go to your county, go to your legislator, go to your town hall, speak to the councilman, speak to everybody that's involved. If you don't say anything, nobody's going to, it's that squeaky wheel gets the oil. Everybody has to speak up. Go to your chambers. Go to the president of your Chamber of Commerce. Everything is filtered up. Just speak up. And hopefully, you know, things will change. They will. It's just the more we say, the faster things can happen. So, but thank you so much for everybody for being here today, and we appreciate your support.